This church began in 1665, and it was the first church to admit Afro-American people as full members. Afro-American black people had a place here. So that's why I keep my place here. I believe those principles still apply.
This is Dorothy Williams, and she is talking about the First Baptist Church of Boston.
I came to this church about 40 years ago. I found everything I needed spiritually, and just a congregation that loved us, raised us, and took care of us. And I never left.
I'm Earl Norman, and I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the church, and I am also the church historian that looks into all our vast history and that kind of thing, and lets the world know about it. I've been coming to this church since I was born, which is 68 years. My mother grew up in the Back Bay and joined the church at the age of 10 and passed away only 5 years ago at the age of 91 while still a member.
Sharon Laurie was baptized at this church over 30 years ago in the same baptismal pool that the church still uses today.
Well, the baptism was really cool because that's at the point, I believe I was 13, and I said I wanted to accept Christ as my Lord and Savior. We got baptized in the baptismal pool, and that was the beginning of my Christian walk, and I'm very, very grateful for that. There's all this wonderful history here, and there's people that can totally care and help mentor your life. And on a generation level, my son felt this was his home. And like this was my first Christian home, and it was my mom's Christian home, but this is where all of our roots are. And so I am very blessed to be in this small niche of this beautiful historical building that brings so much love, joy, and beauty.
For John Odoms, he began as an intern and is now the pastor at the First Baptist Church of Boston.
Our primary activity is gathering for worship on Sunday mornings at 11. Bible study is on Wednesdays, 6:30 to 7:30. And what is really exciting about Bible study is that just about everyone and then some who's involved in the church oftentimes shows up at Bible study. And that doesn't happen very often, as well as like the prayer group that is part of Bible study. And from time to time, we do different activities in the community, social service, social action ministries. I think that it's just really exciting to be so close to like momentous moments in our history and life-changing moments in our society and in our culture.
My name is Jun Lee, and I born in Daegu, South Korea. My family has been always Christian, and I usually went to go to church with them, like when I was really little.
And when June came to the United States, he found his new church home at the First Baptist Church of Boston.
Hunger.
Okay. So I like the people here. They're very intimate, and the family I like the traditional hymn songs, and I love this church because of the history.
I'm from Jamaica, and my husband is from Jamaica, and he was at this church from a long time, and we married and come to this church, and it is a blessing for the First Baptist Church, and we love to talk to people on the street or in the church and bring them in to hear their opinions, and we are so loving, and God's work miracles, and it's all what we think about, to talk to people and give them good encouragement, and it is a blessing. The history of the church, it's so important to see so much benches and hear about how much people used to come to this church, and it is so touching, and I love it.
I think the important thing with this church's history, is it's not just a history of a church. It's also the history of America in many respects. The Baptists, when they began here in the United States, were persecuted by the Puritans because they weren't following the standing order. During the run-up to the Revolutionary War, our minister at the time preached revolution to the extent where Samuel Stillman was preaching to people like John Adams and John Hancock and Henry Knox, prominent people of their day. They all rented pews to hear him preach. He was from Philadelphia originally, and during the occupation of Boston by the British, Stillman went back to his native Philadelphia for safety and became chaplain to the Continental Congress. So our church feeds in through all of this. One of our ministers was Francis Wayland. He's only here about 6.5 years, but he went on to become the great president of Brown University. At one point, we had 21 millionaires as members. And one of the most notable names in there is a fellow by the name of James Wheaton Converse. And James Wheaton Converse was the Converse Rubber Company. And for anybody who's ever worn Keds All-Star sneakers, that was the man. When we were built, we were 176 feet. We were the tallest thing in Back Bay. This building was designed by Henry Hobson Richardson. On the tower of our church, along the way, when Richardson stayed in Paris in the 1860s, toward the end of the 1860s, he got to know a young artist by the name of Bartholdi, Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, who America knows better for having designed and creating the Statue of Liberty. And the rest is history. The building is very historic from that standpoint. Time and weather have caused problems for our tower.
So in 2017, the church began restoration work on its tower. John Odoms, the pastor of the church, took me up to the top of the tower to see the work that is currently underway. Towards the top of the tower, the pastor and I stopped to see the view of the city, and we saw the bell that once rang in this very tower.
The tower we're in is a total of 176 feet in height, so we're probably close to 140, 150 feet above the ground at this point. The size of the beams and everything are phenomenal. Congregation goes back to 1665, and we can practically see where it was organized over in Charlestown. This is holding a whole, sort of metal superstructure that's hanging outside the tower. So when you look at the building and it looks like a big box. This is what is supporting it.
The pastor explains how the cracks in the tower were formed.
When iron starts to rust, it expands and causes all of these cracks. Then dampness gets in, rust forms, the rust splits the stove.
I came here in 1989, and Milt Ryder was the pastor here. And I came in the summer of 1989, and that fall, that's when I joined the choir. We absolutely love David. He's wonderful with the choir. We have mostly students now. I sort of grew, and there was fellowship, and there were programs that I could be involved in for spiritual enrichment. They've been very instrumental in my spiritual and personal growth, too.
The First Baptist Church of Boston is currently fundraising to help restore its tower. The church also has worship services every Sunday morning at 11 and Bible study at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday nights.